It was a sunny and clear day, and Edith Riegelhoff in a white dress was walking through the wedding hall to the ringing of the bell. The bride was on her way to the groom and the priest. She was beautifully dressed, her shiny hair covered with a veil of soft tulle. The eyes of the guests were directed at the beautiful Edith. They were filled with anger, envy, contempt, and lust. The bride and groom looked perfect. Their outfits were impeccable. The ducal wedding had to go off without a hitch. As the priest made a speech about the beautiful future that awaited the newlyweds, Edith thought sadly. The sad bride mentally explained to the priest that none of his words would come true, because this marriage would be unhappy. Today, this cute girl with ruby hair is marrying a man who despises her and will one day stab her. Like a hurricane, the bride was swirled by memories of how a petite brunette meets an acquaintance on the staircase. A tall and broad-shouldered guy shouted at the girl and demanded to give everything she had, because it was thanks to him that she was alive. The brunette protested. Because the uninvited guest had already taken money from her many times, the guy was angry with the answer and pushed the interlocutor hard. During the fall, the brunette realized that there was only a ladder behind her, which was the last thing she saw. The girl resigned herself to the meaningless end of her life, but when a bright light hit her eyes, she rushed to the mirror. The reflection in the mirror seemed impossible. Some beautiful stranger was looking from there. When the maid came into the room and addressed the girl as Lady Edith, she knew at once that she had moved into someone else's body. A girl with ruby hair sat in shock from the realization that she had fallen into the body of the heroine of the novel she had read the previous night. According to the plot of the novel, the main character, Eliza Sinclair, the illegitimate daughter of the Count, was often subjected to ridicule and mockery from her father's legitimate family. One day she met the Ludwigs, who offered her to live with them in the duchy. However, there Eliza Sinclair found herself between two competitors who fought without concessions for her innocent heart. One envious girl from the book novel Edith Riegelhoff did not like what was happening very much. This female character was stupid, evil, blinded by love and jealousy, constantly sabotaging and harming Eliza. An evil and mean girl with ruby hair did everything possible to kill the sweet Eliza Sinclair. Edith's father was the Count himself, and she never worried about money. Now that a new soul has entered her body, there is a chance to fix everything. The maid Sophia informed her mistress that her father was already in his study, so Lady Edith ran headlong there. The girl ran to the Count with the thought that she could easily correct the mistakes made in the novel, and this time win the love of the family for free. Lady Edith happily threw open the door of the study, but seeing her father's displeased face, her good mood faded. The Count looked sternly at his daughter and said that she was slow, late again, and had come late. His father wondered why a girl with ruby hair came to him at all and ordered to close the doors on the back side. Edith was dumbfounded and decided to dig into her memory, accurately remember the plot of the novel and find out the reason for such a cold attitude. The girl felt as if she had been doused with cold water, because a second later a dramatic picture popped up in front of her eyes. Though Lady Edith begged her father for forgiveness, he locked her in a room and let her out only on special occasions. One day, the brother visited his sister and told her that it was time to repay the fact that she had been raised and fed all these years. The guy offered the girl to become a walking billboard of the family, decorated with luxurious dresses and jewelry. At home, Lady Edith once again became the most expensive doll of the Count of Riegelhoff, a target for humiliation and beating, even from the servants. The girl's face, covered with bruises and abrasions, suddenly turned and saw the miniature figure of a brunette in front of her. Crippled Lady Edith looked up sadly at the girl who appeared and asked if she could cope with such a life. The dark-haired girl froze with horror and surprise, so she could not utter a single word in response. Lady Edith's imaginary meeting with her new soul was interrupted by the loud cry of the Count of Riegelhoff, calling his daughter by name. He scolded the heiress for flying in her thoughts and listening to him inattentively, although we are talking about serious things. The Count sternly lamented his daughter that today she could not make a fool of herself, because Ludwig's people could not notice at least some flaw. Lady Edith's face was distorted by her father's mention of the contract, according to which, if everything went perfectly, they could move on to the next stage. Count Riegelhoff, encouraged by the imminent change, ordered his servants to prepare for the journey, while Lady Edith stood aside. The sad girl pondered why her family was like this and why Duke Ludwig and Count Riegelhoff behaved like rivals. Lady Edith's memory told her that the rivalry between these families had arisen many years ago, when their levels of power were almost equal. But everything changed when Count Ludwig's family made a great contribution to the war and received the title of Duke. Count Riegelhoff decided to marry his daughter in order to take revenge because he believed that the title was received unfairly and should have gone to him. Lady Edith was saddened by the thought that her own father was planning to use his daughter to destroy the duchy through her. But after a second, the girl calmed down, because after the relocation, she is twice as strong. She will not miss such an opportunity and will be able to survive. After getting out of the carriage, Edith thought that in novels in which the heroine is reborn into a villain, some kind of crisis occurs at first. When the girl saw Duke Ludwig's castle, she realized that the most important thing was not to make the mistakes of the heroine from the original novel. The Duke's estate looked chic, so the Count and his son discussed it with envy in every word. Count Riegelhoff concluded that there was no point in such a luxurious castle because it was probably empty and lonely inside. At the entrance to the estate there was a servant who met the Count's family and said that the Duke and Duchess were already waiting for guests. In the presence of strangers, the attitude of her father and brother towards Lady Edith instantly changed, became kind and affectionate. Strange as it was, Lady Edith decided to ignore it and play along with her father's courtesies. The girl with ruby hair did not pay attention to her relatives because she was busy thinking about a plan for the duchy. Count Riegelhoff and his children were invited to the main dining room, where all the invited guests were seated. The Count's daughter was struck by the beauty of the decoration of the dining room, in which the plot of the novel begins to unfold. The arriving guests were greeted by Duke Axel Ludwig and Duchess Jessica Ludwig. Previously, they could only be imagined by description. At the dinner table sat Cliff, the main male character of the novel. He was insanely attractive, especially his eyes with golden irises. The blonde sweet girl must have been Lady Eliza Sinclair, for she was so beautiful and like the goddess of spring. A haughty man with a stern look, a straight nose and a sharp chin is probably Lady Edith's future husband. The Count's daughter could not imagine how it was possible to fall in love with such a seemingly cruel person. But the longer the girl looked at her future husband, the better she understood why Edith from the novel was so attached to her husband. The girl with ruby hair realized that she had been looking at the young master for too long and was very embarrassed. Edith Riegelhoff decided to take a look at the chic dining table, filled with a variety of dishes. The girl did not stop chewing and rejoicing that she was in the aristocratic world, but her meal was interrupted. The Count carefully put his hand on his daughter's shoulder and told his interlocutors that, as a loving father, he could not just put the heiress down. The Duke and Duchess continued to listen attentively to the Count, who explained that it would be calm if the three maids went with Lady Edith. Duchess Jessica Ludwig protested because she believed that their family also had good maids who could serve with dignity. But Count Riegelhoff did not retreat, and asked the Duchess if she had not brought a single maid with her when she was married. There was an awkward silence in the dining room after the question, but Lady Edith decided that she could diffuse the tension. The girl explained her father's strange request by his anxiety and concern, and assured the Duke and Duchess not to worry about it. As the Riegelhoff family headed home, the Count shouted furiously at his daughter because her words only made things worse. Lady Edith tried to contradict her angry father by asking him if he had seen Duke Ludwig's face. The girl said that she noticed how tense the interlocutors were because the Count's request for maids sounded too obvious. The Count's daughter reminded her father that this marriage should dispel any doubts and suspicions about the competition between the two families. Count Riegelhoff asked his daughter how she would cope with the task without the help of maids. Lady Edith was urging her father that she should go to the duchy alone and ingratiate herself with her, while her brother stared out the window and thought of Eliza. The Count decided to take a risk and trust his daughter. Perhaps her docility and obedience would really not arouse suspicion. A week had passed since the Count had decided to confide in his daughter, who was now standing contented and in her wedding dress. All this week, Lady Edith seemed to walk on a knife's edge, but it was worth it, because after marriage she would not have to return home. The priest offered to exchange rings. The bride turned her head and saw two cute babies carrying a pillow with jewelry. The girl was glowing with delight and rapture. She turned her gaze to Killian's fiancé, but he did not share her joy and was darker than a cloud. Edith understood why her future husband was sad, so she humbly lowered her head and suggested that the ceremony be finished quickly. Finally, the wedding ring took place on the bride's finger, but she noted that Killian, putting on the cherished accessory, squinted with dislike. Lady Edith thought that the fear of light touch was reminiscent of the behavior of a child in kindergarten, but the further action shocked her. The girl's husband quickly grabbed the wedding ring from the pillow and put it on himself. For a second, Lady Edith's heart was seized with resentment because of the act of her stern husband. The girl looked sadly at her long-awaited jewelry. Soon the girl pulled herself together and concluded that if there was no love in this marriage, it would not disrupt her own plans in any way. Lady Edith's kind smile began to play again, and she leaned over to thank the children for their help. The girl with ruby hair was calm and determined, but her indifference surprised and embarrassed her husband. Killian's new wife thought that the time had finally passed when she could live and not worry that she would become a victim of beatings. The next morning, Lady Edith woke up in a great mood and stretched out with joy that a free life was beginning. The girl was happy that she was reborn into a beautiful body, but she was worried that she did not know the taste and preferences in Edith's clothes from the book. Showing off in front of the mirror, I thought that the Count's real daughter would not like a wedding dress. The neckline was deep and the heel was high. His thoughts were interrupted by an unexpected knock on the door of the chambers, and the girl with ruby hair turned and saw Lady Eliza. The guest blushed and was embarrassed to say a word, but she gathered her will into a fist and resolutely said that she had something important to say. Looking at Lady Eliza's face, the Earl's daughter remembered an episode that occurred in the novel after the wedding ceremony. Lady Eliza personally came to the room of her new wife to apologize for the behavior of the stern groom. But her apologies had the opposite effect and only angered the young wife more, so all the anger poured out on Lady Eliza. A girl with ruby hair smiled merrily at the memories of the events of the novel. The owner of the body of the Count's daughter decided to be different from the heroine of the novel, not to be angry with the blonde girl and humbly listen to her. Eliza began to apologize again and asked not to be offended by Killian because he is a good person, although he looks harsh and cruel. The girl with ruby hair was relieved by Eliza's words. She looked at her interlocutor and did not understand how she could be angry with her. Edith could not take her eyes off the cutie, an obligatory character in any novel. She has shiny blonde hair, kind and innocent eyes. The woman in the new body assured Lady Eliza that she should not worry, because she understands everything and does not take offense at Killian. The girl said that she could put herself in the position of a spouse, because they are both in an unpleasant position because of the marriage agreed by their families. Lady Eliza admired the intelligence and shrewdness of Killian's wife, and the Count's daughter thought that everything would go according to plan if she remained kind. The girls exchanged sweet compliments, but the friendly conversation was interrupted by the voice of the maid, who said that the towel was already in place. Lady Eliza decided to leave the chambers of her young wife, and the Count's daughter was finally able to relax because the post-wedding fuss was over. First of all, the owner of the new body decided to take a relaxing bath with flower petals prepared by the servant. The reborn Edith lay in the bathtub and thought about how good it was to be the wife of the future Duke. Even the lack of the internet did not interfere. The girl dreamed of visiting theaters, museums, operas, and balls, but in such a carefree life there is a significant drawback: a husband. Suddenly, out of nowhere, as if out of a fog, Killian appeared and called the girl lying in the bathtub a shameless bride. The newly made wife was deeply shocked by the appearance of her husband, because according to the plot of the novel, he was not supposed to come to the newlyweds' room. Killian did not understand the girl's surprise, but she explained that she had guessed, because the groom was not happy about the wedding, therefore he would not come. The young man praised his wife for her ingenuity and said that he was not going to take care of his fiancée in any way. During the conversation, Lady Edith looked at her husband and did not understand how a person could be both beautiful on the outside and rotten on the inside. Killian asked his wife if she would sleep in this room, and when he heard a positive answer, he only quickly turned around and left. The girl with ruby hair could not understand why Killian Ludwig had come at all, and continued to take a bath. From the newlyweds' room, Killian hurriedly walked out into the corridor, where he heard a gentle voice calling his name. The guy turned around and saw the sweet and gentle Lady Eliza. She asked if she had seen Killian leave the honeymoon room correctly. The guy nodded in agreement and said that Lady Edith was lying and dozing in the bathroom, not thinking about the marital night, just like him. Lady Eliza froze with incomprehension, managing only to utter the words about Killian's wife's promise to treat her with kindness and understanding. A young man with a grin approached the blonde beauty and gently patted her on the head, scolding her for her naive faith in people's decency. Killian reminded the girl that his wife was the daughter of the Count of Riegelhof, and no one could be sure of the sincerity of the intentions of the people from this family. The blonde girl said that the Count's daughter could not break her promise, and these words greatly surprised Lady Edith's husband. He asked for more information about the Count's daughter's promise, and Lady Eliza began to recount their conversation that day. The blonde girl explained that the Count's daughter had made a set of her dress, which made Lady Eliza blush and feel embarrassed. Killian said that he was not surprised by his wife's attention to someone else's dress because her own outfit was tasteless. Lady Eliza reprimanded her new husband for the rude and unflattering words he had spoken to his wife. The guy replied that the blonde girl was cruel to him and did not understand his feelings. Such frank words touched